It's true. In every city, college town, and high school around this country, if you're a fan, you don't just wear a jersey.
It's true. When you put on the colors of your team, you represent that team. You are your team.
Those colors aren't just what we wear. Those colors represent who we are and what drives us. Passion,
Tradition. Winning.
toughness. At Lansing Building Products, it's true. We're a part of a team that wears blue.
Our true blue. It's unique and represents who we are every day.
True Blue shows respect for our associates, customers, and our suppliers.
Being open, honest, and humble.
Understanding and appreciating different perspectives.
Recognizing others' good work. And protecting the Lansing brand.
True Blue gives our customers the best possible service.
Communicating clearly.
Anticipating needs. Embracing challenges.
And delivering on promises.
True Blue is how we achieve excellence in everything we do. Putting safety first. Engaging the whole Lansing team.
Developing yourself and others. And making each day better. True Blue is what inspires us to make Lansing a best-in-class place to work and build a career.
To deliver a best-in-class customer experience. To grow our business and achieve our goals.
While working every day to make a positive impact in people's lives by putting our values into action.
It's true to who we are.
Lansing Building Products. We are True Blue.
We've always empowered our clients through expertise in technology, data, and design. But with the acceleration of AI, countless new questions emerge. Can you unlock growth opportunities by predicting better outcomes? Can you deliver superior experiences to connect with customers on a more personalized level? Can you optimize productivity by leveraging pattern recognition to do more in less time? Together, we'll help you find your why for AI. Captech, let's do next together.
Starting as a small business in 1930, We understand how insurance needs change as business evolves. From startups to seasoned establishments, whether you have one employee or 1,000. From coast to coast, we deliver quality workers' compensation insurance solutions. At Markel, people come first. To us, insurance is more than a piece of paper. It's a promise to get people back on their feet. Our claims team combines experience with dedicated customer service to achieve the best possible resolution. And our dedicated loss control team provides tailored solutions to help protect businesses in the industries we serve. So whether you own a retail shop or a restaurant, a beauty salon or a bakery, a convenience store or a childcare center, we aim to understand your needs so that when an opportunity comes, you can seize it.
We strive for excellence while keeping a sense of humor. People have a right to challenge management. We like to listen to better ways of doing things. And it's all about winning. We are a company built to last, not a company built to sell. You surround yourself with people who are strong where you are weak. You become stronger, and life is better. You can think about all the negative things, but why? I just think the old-time values, there's nothing wrong with them. I just think it's fun living.
Onward. We start off today's meeting with a tribute to our former chairman, Alan Kirshner, who left us a few short weeks ago. Onward was one of Alan's favorite words. In my 34 years of conversations with Alan, I can't count the number of times when our conversation concluded with Alan pronouncing the benediction of onward. He meant keep going. Well, today we honor his memory, and we do it most profoundly by committing to the idea of onward and to press ahead. All of us owe a debt of gratitude to Alan, who, along with his partners, Tony and Steve Markel, founded the modern Markel Group. We would not be here today if it weren't for Alan and his vision of what this company could become someday. Alan was a creator, and he did what great creators do. Namely, he established a path upon which those of us who follow him can also create. And our job as creators will be to do the same for those that follow us. How did Alan do this? Well, let's take a look at those 9 statements we just heard in his voice and think about them as they apply today. 1, we strive for excellence while keeping a sense of humor. Excellence is a worthy goal. It provides a compass point by which to judge every decision we make. We can ask ourselves, does what we are about to do meet the standard of striving for excellence? Excellence is a moving target. By that I mean that the target itself moves and that it emotionally moves us. Being dedicated to excellence helps us to get up in the morning with fire in our belly. Being dedicated to excellence drives our desire to accomplish great things. Being dedicated to excellence makes us worthy of the trust you place in us. At the same time, Alan married the idea of the relentless pursuit of excellence with maintaining a sense of humor. Pursuing excellence without retaining a sense of humor and the humanity that goes with the ability to laugh can deteriorate into ruthlessness and inhumanity. By keeping those 2 ideas joined together like Siamese twins, Alan gave us a technique that would both always push us forward and help us to retain our humanity at the same time. 2, people have a right to challenge management. Long before his time, Alan understood that a great company doesn't come solely from the top down. A great company is a community. It respects and cherishes the ideas and observations that come from everybody. Alan left us with the charge that as managers, we need to listen. We need to constantly observe, evaluate, and cultivate the ideas and opinions of our teammates. I read a book recently where the author described a coffee shop with a sign out front saying you could buy their coffee 3 ways: sweetened, unsweetened, or somewhere else. Now, I admit, as a drinker of black coffee, who sometimes resents waiting in a long line of people ordering complicated coffee drinks, and as someone who defines complicated coffee as any way other than black, I appreciate that sentiment, but that's not how we treat each other. We embrace the idea of a teammate providing us with new information, or new ways to see things, or new ways to think. We quickly, if imperfectly, try to see challenging management as an offer of help, not personal criticism. Again, Alan left us a tool and a marker to judge our own reaction to being on the receiving end of a challenge, and also an encouragement to speak up when we think there might be a better way. 3, we like to listen to better ways of doing things. Alan spent his time at Markel listening about 80 or 90% of the time and talking 10 or 20%. That is a spectacular example of how to learn, how to build relationships, how to discover new ideas, and how to build friendships. Again, he left us with a guide to keep moving onward. 4, and it's all about winning. People like to be on a winning team. There's no getting around it. We've been successful for decades. That success, in and of itself, creates momentum for future success. Our accomplishments, our wins, serve to attract people to the Markel Group. While it is undeniably a challenge to grow from roughly the 300 folks that we employed at the time of our initial public offering in 1986 to well over 20,000 associates today, in some ways, it gets easier as we get larger. We've got a flywheel of people dedicated to our culture. Many people love the way we do things, and they want to be part of it all. Fortunately, we're also large and resilient enough to fix things when we make inevitable mistakes. We can keep moving onward. 5, we are a company built to last, not built to sell. This means so much. I don't think it's possible to overstate the importance of this idea. Many managements and boards have too quick a trigger finger and respond to any offer at any time to sell the company. While some aspects of fiduciary duty do indeed apply, I hope you share our dream of building the Markel Group to last with an unbounded time horizon. We depend on long-term relationships, long-term commitments, long-term behaviors, and a commitment to make things better for the next generation as pillars of every daily action, forever and right now. I don't think you can build a durable and successful company if you're always looking out of the corner of your eye for another suitor. We're explicit about our calling to build the Markel Group into one of the world's great companies. That carries an idea that we're not pointing towards a particular finish line. We're playing an infinite game. As the old saying goes, a good farmer farms for the next generation. We aim to be good farmers. 6, you surround yourself with people who are strong where you are weak. You become stronger, and life is better. Again, Alan nailed it. One of the other ways he said the same thing on countless occasions was, A players hire A players, and B players hire C players. If you're not confident enough to admit where you are weak and hire to complement and fill those gaps, you'll end up with a Matryoshka doll where each new player on the team gets weaker and weaker until the organization fails. As we keep moving onward, Alan gave us a standard to use when recruiting and hiring. Don't be afraid to hire people who are better than you are. 7, you can think about all the negative things, but why? We all get tempted to think of changes and risks as catastrophes in the making. Clearly, we all face challenges of wars, environmental issues, geopolitical tensions, disease, and endless categories of loss. The fact is, we have always faced those existential risks and challenges, and we always will. I hope it comforts you to know that we successfully surmounted those challenges before. We will successfully face them next time and the time after that. We do our best to think about and plan for known and unknown risk, but life retains the certainty of surprise. The great news is that people, and specifically the people of the Markel Group, face challenges with creativity, adaptability, resilience, and an unwavering commitment. We will be far better served by remaining hopeful and optimistic. It's the way to lead. It's the way to enjoy life. And it is the way to accomplish great things. 8, I just think the old-time values, there's nothing wrong with them. I'm going to be so bold as to put words in Alan's mouth and list what some of those old-time values might be. I think kindness, integrity, curiosity, empathy, patience, dependability, courage, and most importantly, love make the cut. I'm for all of them, and we explicitly endorse them at Markel. Finally, at the end, he said, I think it's just fun living. Alan, it sure is. Thank you for your part in creating what we are here to push forward today. Thank you for writing down our values in the Markel Style. You knew a day would come when you personally were no longer here, and those of us who followed you would be well served by those values being formally memorialized. Well, that day has now come. Thank you for your life's work. And now, as you used to say, onward.
Great job, Tom. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's annual meeting. We really do appreciate you joining us. My name is Steve Markel, Chairman of the Board of Markel Group Inc. I welcome you to today's 2024 annual meeting of shareholders, and I'll be serving as your chairman. A representative of KPMG is present and will be available to respond to any of your questions during the question and answer session, which will follow in a few minutes. I'll conduct the formal agenda and try to get through it as efficiently as possible, and I now call the annual meeting of shareholders to order. The polls are now open for voting. If anyone would like to vote in person, please immediately see the Inspector of Elections, Mr. David Dixon with CT Hagbert Group, who's in the back corridor. If you've already voted, there's no need to do anything further. Your votes will be counted today. The notice of annual meeting was distributed to all of our shareholders of record March 14, 2024. A quorum is now present for purposes of conducting the business today. Pursuant to the company's bylaws, the only matters properly coming before today's meeting are those set forth in the notice of annual meeting and proxy statement. The first proposal on the agenda is the election of directors, and the director nominees are Mark Beska, Larry Cunningham, Tom Gayner, Greta Harris, Morgan Housel, Diane Leopold, Tony Markel, Steve Markel, Harold Morrison, Michael O'Reilly, and Lynn Puckett, all of whom are here today, and I'd like to ask our director nominees to stand up and receive your appreciation. I can assure you this group of people are very, very dedicated to the Markel Group, work diligently to provide their insights and advice and expertise to the management team. Your board has recommended the approval of each of these nominees. Proposal 2 gives shareholders the opportunity to approve on an advisory basis executive compensation. Proposal 3 concerns the approval of the company's 2024 Executive Incentive Compensation Plan. Proposal number 4 concerns the ratification of the selection of KPMG by the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors as the company's independent registered public accounting firm for the year ending December 31, 2024. Your board has recommended a vote for these proposals 2, 3, and 4. Proposal 5 is a shareholder's proposal to receive a report or to ask for the company to make a report on the company's greenhouse gas emissions. Glenn Bessa, representing Green Century Capital Management, is here today and will present this proposal. Mr. Bessa, you may stand and proceed. We'll have someone bring you a microphone. We'd ask that you keep your remarks brief, and I know you will. We appreciate you being here today.
Good afternoon. I'm representing Green Century Capital Management as the sponsor of an important proposal that requests Markel disclose greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with its underwriting, insuring, and investment activities. Implementing the proposal would provide investors a better understanding of the areas where Markel is exposed to climate risk, help the company to keep pace with peers, and avoid reputational risks. In its opposition statement, the board focuses on Markel's existing ability to navigate climate risk in its underwriting and insurance business. However, the proposal requests Markel to quantify and disclose the emissions that its business enables because they amplify the company's own climate risks. Markel significantly lags peers that have disclosed Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions and are now disclosing emissions associated with their investment and insuring activities. U.S. insurers, Travelers, AIG, have begun to disclose emissions associated with their investments, as have Swiss Re, Munich Re, Alliance, and Aviva. In addition, Swiss Re has started to disclose its insurance-associated emissions. Markel's inaction exposes it to reputational risk. On its website, the company supports the insurance industry's push for carbon neutrality as a part of achieving goals of the Paris Agreement. However, it offers no strategy or plans on how to align its own insurance and investment activities with the emissions reductions called for by the Paris Agreement. In opposing the proposal, the board notes that measuring emissions associated with Markel's core business functions is impractical and possibly leads to inaccuracy. Given this concern, Markel should adopt the common sense approach of collecting data from its insurance clients and investments that have high emission profiles. As the insurance and financial sectors create better estimation methodologies, the company may disclose more granular emission data in the future. Further, in case of uncertainty, Markel can provide data ranges and caveats about estimations or data gaps. By implementing this proposal, Markel assures that it has the management skills to tackle data collection of a complex nature. Rather than cast it as a burden, the board and management should review this as an opportunity to lessen reputational damage, to avoid unfavorable peer comparisons, and to identify unsurfaced risks. It also demonstrates how seriously Markel takes its role in achieving steep economic-wide emission reductions. We therefore urge a vote for this proposal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bessa. The board has considered this proposal. We've had quite a few discussions about it over the various periods of time. The board has recommended against the proposal as described in the proxy statement. This concludes the review of matters to be voted on today, and the polls are now closed. I can report that based upon preliminary information from our inspectors of election, that sufficient votes have been cast to elect all of the director nominees, to approve the company's executive compensation plan, to approve the company's equity incentive plan, to ratify the selection of KPMG, and to reject the shareholders' proposal for a report of greenhouse gas emissions. Final voting will be certified by the Inspector of Elections and will be reported publicly in a Form 8-K to be filed in connection with the matters voted upon in this meeting. All items of business have now been completed, and the annual meeting of shareholders is now adjourned. In just a moment, Matt Johnson will join us on the stage and share with us this year's winner of the Markel Style Award. The Markel Style Award, as you all know, is one of the most important treasured things about Markel Corporation, and Alan has clearly wrote the style many years ago, and Tom did a wonderful job of talking about it as well earlier. When Alan drafted this document in 1986, he did it because he wanted to codify the values that we believed in at that point in time, and make sure that those values were written down and remembered and continued for a long period of time. Writing those values down would ensure that we'd not lose them, that they would not be diluted with the passage of time, and that they become part of the fabric of Markel. And as you'll see with the nominees of the award today, you'll see they're alive and well and growing within the Markel Group. None of us would ever have appreciated the impact that the Markel Style would ultimately have on Markel when Alan drafted that many years ago. We've gone from a few hundred associates to over 20,000 today. We're working in over 24 different businesses around the globe, and it's just hard to imagine how this could have possibly happened without the Markel Style. The Markel Style and our commitment to putting together a group of people who are hungry to win, who are honest and fair, hardworking, who want to have fun working together, and most importantly, are committed to excellence. It's a testament to the power of the Markel Style, and I'll certainly always be grateful for Alan for having picked up the pen. We'll now have a video to introduce the Markel Style.
What makes a company great?
We talk so much about culture here, but this is not about plants. This is absolutely about people.
The FBI agents rushed in, so they're taking a picture of me, and I'm like, why? It was so we don't shoot you.
Pitcher happens to throw a knuckleball. The glove is a lot bigger because the pitches can come from all over. And Joanne has kind of had to wear a knuckleball catcher's mitt.
Nothing broken?
Hey, nothing broken, but I think I proved that I would do anything for Elizabeth Pitts.
I took a look in the mirror and said, you gotta change. And I have pushed myself to places that I never thought that I could go.
In 1928, Tom Green took a world tour, and that was how he used to sell equipment back in those days.
But immediately, John is under the truck trying to figure out how to rip the tire down, and I don't know how he's gonna get it off because we didn't have any tools yet.
And you know I love to call people an absolute legend, but you know what he is?
An absolute legend.
Dr. Mumper is a terrific basketball player, according to Dr. Mumper.
Phil had my back, you see what I'm saying? He went above and beyond, you see what I'm saying, for me to get this job.
Alex had a way of convincing you to work. Face to face, buddy, I need you. And everybody would do it for him. Dying thing.
You know, no matter how dark things get, one can always turn on the light. And I think it's very important to be the one to turn on the light and help change the atmosphere and change the scene.
At Markel Group, what we've found is that it's beyond great product or service. Those are important, sure, but it's really about the people.
He really can just take any moment and make you laugh.
Who drive culture.
I want to thank you for being the best teammate. Your co-workers, they love you.
Who embody the spirit of the work and who build lasting relationships across organizations. We're on a journey to tell the stories of those people, the ones who make Markel Group successful. Welcome to Markel Style.
Woo, my friends. I have to tell you, as you can see, I've had the opportunity to travel around over the last year, meeting and spending time with our Style Award winners, and it's been incredible. We did a podcast and video series, which you can watch online, and I think when I reflect on that experience, I really do feel like the luckiest guy in the world, because I laughed more than I ever would have thought I would laugh in a corporate job. I felt real tears come through when I learned about the stories of some of the lives that have been saved and changed by our companies. And I felt the contagious energy that comes from being around people with real fire in their belly. But I think most of all, the thing that I learned is that without people like this, the Markel Style is nothing. It's a piece of paper with 214 words written on it. And just like the sheet music for your favorite song, you can put all the notes on there and the tempo changes and the crescendos and every bit of the piece of the song on there. But it doesn't mean anything until somebody plays it. And I would contend for you that the people who win this award play the song of the Markel Style better than anyone ever has. And so I'm going to introduce you to this year's winners, and it's going to be something of a lightning round because we have 18 folks up here today. So I can't tell their full story. But my one hope is that as you meet these people, you start to feel the beat. You start to hear the song. Because if you do, you will feel, not just know, but feel what the Markel style is all about. And so it is my honor to present to you this year's winners of the Markel Style Award. And we are going to start on the end with Sherilyn Lau. Now, Sherilyn is the face of Markel in Hawaii. She's grown her book of business by 23% over the last 2 years. And you might ask, how did she do that? She did it by embodying the essence of Hawaiian culture, where business is not transactional, but actually built from deep relationships and a commitment to service. And so we could click through all these slides in a very transactional way, but that is not how we do it. What we're going to do is do what Sherilyn would do, which is to start by saying thank you to these people for embodying our values. And we're not going to say thank you, we're going to say mahalo like they do in Hawaii. So on the count of 3, I'm going to need 2,000 people to say mahalo. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, mahalo! All right, thank you very much. And now we go on to Max. And Max, I tell you, we opened a new insurance office in France, and that's actually not a very easy thing to do, to open an office in a new country. But Max is like our Magellan, our Cousteau, our Lois and Clark, and he's pushing our insurance business to new frontiers in France. You know, one of the things that State National is known for is its ability to move risk and capital between different companies and investment funds. These are really complex transactions. But luckily, we have Jessica Phillips, because she has an uncanny ability to translate complicated contracts into language that even I can understand. The anthropologist Ralph Linton once said, the last thing a fish would notice would be water. And in a similar way, we don't actually realize that the environments in which we work actually shape our productivity and morale. But thanks to Sarah Baker, the offices in Markel, UK actually provide the same energy and life that a water does for fish. When Dawn was 13 years old, her mother passed away. And Dawn doesn't have any brothers or sisters, and so it was just her and her father from there. And she graduated high school, and then she put herself through college. And that's why Dawn will be the first to tell you that she's not just there to manage the day-to-day operations for Metromont and HR. She's there to be a champion and mentor to help people reach their full potential, just like your dad did for you. Steve Mosby. Now, Billy's here. I promised I wouldn't roast you, Steve, even though Billy's asking me to. By the way, Billy is Steve's brother. Steve challenged us to ask a question because, you know, we talk a lot about building one of the world's great companies here at Markel Group. But Steve asked us a different question, which is, what does that feel like? What does it feel like to build something great with people you care about? And to answer that question, we're going to actually let Steve do it, and we're going to play footage from when he won the Founders Award from Lansing Building Products earlier this year.
I don't know if you ever built a fort when you're a little kid or a tree house, and you collect all this stuff, and you drag it out into the woods. Friday night, you got a plan, you put a plan together, you got a vision, you're going to create this really cool thing. And Friday night, you're so excited, you can't wait, you can't sleep. Saturday morning comes, you get up, you charge off into the woods with your friends, you drag all this stuff. That excitement that you feel, that you can picture something really cool that you're going to build with people that you care about. I've had that feeling for 34 years. So that's a tribute to you guys, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Sarah Ahmed. Sarah is the youngest winner of a Markel Style Award in history. She joined Markel 2 years ago right out of high school. And I saw this, I couldn't believe it, so I called up Simon Wilson, who leads our insurance operations over on the international side. And I said, Simon, how could someone so young win this award? And he didn't skip a beat, and he said, Matt, when Sarah talks, everyone listens. You know, one of the ideas that's been foundational at Markel for 94 years is an aspiration that any person who comes into contact with us is actually better off for having done so. And this is something that Sharon lives each and every single day, because whether it was coordinating curbside testing during COVID or helping her patients through extremely difficult diagnoses, Sharon, you leave your teams and your patients better than they were the day before. You know, one of the hardest things to do right now is to fill a good quality trade job in America. But rather than just sit idly by, Jeff Lewis and the team at VFC have forged first of their kind partnerships with high schools and community colleges to actually create a pipeline for young talent to get into apprenticeships in fire and security. And if you want to know what that looks like, you can just look at the Virginia Randolph Career Center here in Henrico, where they're taking what was really an unused wood shop, and they're creating a state-of-the-art fire sprinkler lab. Javier, you know, one of the things that they say at Costa Farms is that they don't just grow plants, and by the way, these are beautiful plants. They grow people too. And they call Javier the talent pollinator because he's had more people come through his ranks to take senior leadership roles at his company. Natalie is on the InsurTech team, and what they do is they partner up with startups and digital distribution providers to sell insurance online. It's a relatively young team, but what they've done in the last 5 years is actually grow their book of business by a factor of 10, which is not so bad for a team of just 4 people. I'm sorry to say that Garrett Bach actually passed away before we could physically give him this award. And Garrett worked at Solburn for over 30 years. And when we asked Ken Newsom, who is the CEO of Markel Food Group, what Garrett was all about, he said, Garrett is a perfect example of a hidden hero, somebody who's quiet, who works hard every single day, goes over and above, but never says anything. And when we look at this situation, as I understand it, Garrett is not the type of guy that would have liked the limelight in this. But now we have 2,000 people who've heard his name. We have 2,000 people who see his face. And so maybe we can drop the word hidden and just call Garrett a hero. Oh, Tan. Are you ready for this, Tan? She's on the big screen now. And so, Tan, here's the deal. There's probably no better example of our hard work and zealous pursuit of excellence than you. If you want to understand this, just listen to Tan's daily routine. She gets up at 4 a.m. every single day. She goes for a run, regardless of weather or temperature. She's actually in the office so early that we don't know when you arrive. She works all day, and then on most days, she goes home and prepares a meal for her extended family. Tan does not have a cell phone. She does not deviate from this routine, but I think it's important to realize that Tan is not some robotic machine. Because of all the things that the team at Parkland celebrated about you, Tan, it was your ability to spread joy that they really focused on the most. And so the team at Markel Ventures wanted to spread some joy for you. They wanted to return the favor. And as we understand it, faith and family are everything for you. And we understand that your parents played a pivotal role in making you and your 6 siblings into the people that you are today. And so the team at Parkland is going to be installing a memorial bench at the Maymont Estate here in Richmond, Virginia, for your parents to honor the legacy that they've left. So thank you very much, Tan. And Tan's sister is right behind her. Thank you. Erin Williamson's been here for 18 years. In that time, she's done a lot of different things. But most recently, she was able to work with her team to take a claims audit and actually shape a new claims strategy. You know, one of the things you have to do as an insurance company is you have to constantly be looking at your product portfolio and evolving it. And Elizabeth Berry over in Markel UK, what she did is she launched a new construction product over there while exceeding the sales targets on all of your existing portfolio. Robin Manning, hello. And I tell you, Robin's been at Ellicott Dredges for 38 years. Now, in that amount of time, your mind can harden. You can lose your ability to change, and your routines can become really rigid. But Robin has consistently been there to try something new and to do whatever it takes to help the team at Ellicott win. And then we get to Linda Hill. Are you ready for this? We don't know. Linda has been at our New York office for the insurance business for 7 years. And just like Sarah Baker, she creates an environment that's full of life, and it feels like home. But I promise you there is more to this story, my friends, because when I called Linda Hill to congratulate her, I said, hey, Linda, can you tell me a little bit about your life? And she said, sure thing, Matt, I'll start you at the beginning. So she said, I was born in a clapboard house with no running water in Kansas. And I graduated high school and I became a waitress at the local truck stop. And I was, really kind of a girl with a big city dream. So I eventually actually got the nerve to go move to San Francisco to start doing comedy. And I was like, Linda, you got to be kidding me. I was like, would you be willing to send me some photos from the old days with you on stage so that we could share it at the reunion? And she did. And so then she sent me these, and it was nice. Here she is on stage performing. And I said, wait a minute, that's Minnie Pearl. That's Robin Williams. So I immediately called Linda back. I said, you knew Robin Williams? She said, well, yeah, man. I mean, I told you I came up in comedy in the 70s. It was me, Robin, and Whoopi. And I was like, Whoopi who? She's like, Whoopi Goldberg. I was like, you knew Whoopi Goldberg? And so I was like, Linda, we got to restart. You got to tell me the real story here. She's like, well, there's not really much to it. I started playing shows. I eventually got a gig at Caesar's Tahoe, and I was sitting there, and George Carlin was playing the large room next door. The air conditioner was broken over there, so George came into my room, and he watched my set. He ended up liking it, so he asked the promoter for my phone number. George and I started talking. He ended up getting me a Cinemax special. From there, I was able to start headlining clubs in San Francisco, and then I moved to New York. I did a couple movies, some TV shows, performed, but about 7 years ago, I wanted to settle down a little bit, and I joined Markel. And I'm like... I was like, Linda, what's happening here? And so Linda, so here's the thing. So I'm like, Linda, you could spend all your time telling stories about who you've met, the things you've done. But I think what's most exceptional about Linda is you'd be hard-pressed to find a person at Markel that knows all of that. Because when you call Linda Hill on the phone, she makes you the star of the show. And that's why every time you go to the New York office, she makes you feel like you're the most special person, and it's incredible. But now here's the thing is, folks, I'm looking at Linda Hill right now, and this is the actual professional. Why don't we get Linda a microphone? Do you think we should get Linda a microphone right now? Oh? All right. Now, Linda, you're going to help me out, okay?
I'm going to do my darndest.
So, first of all, welcome to Richmond, Virginia. Is this your first time?
It is my first time in Richmond, Matt. Please be gentle with me.
Yes, ma'am. And now here's the thing. This is not scripted because who needs to script a true professional? So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce our last winner, and it's Chris Ciccone. And Chris is from our Red Bank, New Jersey office, and he works on the IT team. And I got to tell you, Chris is as good as it gets because there's not a computer problem. There is no problem you can't solve with computers or sometimes with the users. We understand this, Chris. And if IT had like the major leagues, we feel like you'd be in it, And the thing is that Chris actually used to play baseball, and he was a really good ball player. And we know, Chris, that you're a Yankees fan. And so what we wanted to do is really memorialize the idea and celebrate that you are on our team. And so we got a custom Yankees jersey here with Ciccone on the back. We put 5 for 5 years. And so, my friend, that is for you. Thank you. I'm assuming you can catch it. He played first base, so he should be able to catch it, right? Now, Linda, you lived in New York for a little while.
Oh, yes.
Now, do you know when the Yankees win a game, what song do they play?
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today.
That was, so clearly, I guess we're okay. We were safe giving you a microphone. That's good. All right. So, now, Linda, I'm looking out and I see 17 people who are winners, who embody that Markel spirit. And I got to ask you, what's the last word of the Markel style?
Matt Johnston?
Okay, Linda, I love you. I love you. We are going places, baby. No, but actually, what's the last word of the Markel style?
Winning!
Okay, so to me, I'm looking at 17 winners, and the last word of the Markel style is winning. They play this song at the end of the game. What song should we play right now?
New York, New York!
Let's do it. Let's play the song, friends. And we're going to bring it home to celebrate the winners of the Markel Style Award for embodying the essence of the style with their actions and not just their words.
Please welcome to the stage Tom Gayner, Mike Heaton, Andrew Crowley, Jeremy Noble, and Brian Costanzo.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, it's great to have a crowd like this come out today. We're over 2,000 people setting a new record, and I like the smiles that I see on people's faces. I know you'll follow the tradition of coming back next year and bringing a friend with you. So thank you so much for being here. Now, before we get started with the questions and your part of the meeting, I think you can all recognize and realize that a meeting like this does not happen by itself. There were a lot of people who spent a lot of hours and did a lot of work and a lot of dedication to bring this about, and I do want to thank a few of them, and I know there's more that I can't get to, so please I apologize for my omissions, but let me try to do the best I can to thank many of you who made this all happen. First off, Tyler Brown, my partner. Tyler, where are you? Oh, yeah, you're back there. So sorry. So Tyler works with me on equity investments. As we started to create the annual meeting and trying to make it a more substantial thing, Tyler really took ownership of this, coined the name, the Reunion, and it's really the intellectual godfather of this. So we all owe Tyler a great round of thanks for that. Matt Johnson, who you just heard from. Well, Matt Johnson is, as Linda would say, Matt Johnson. I won't say anything more. He does it all. Event planning, we actually have a business that has a number of events, so we have someone who captains that, and that's Cynthia Green. And Cynthia runs the show on this as well. And her team of Gretchen Nurnberg, Sarah Westfall, and Kara Mountain just make all the logistics happen, and I have my gratitude for that. Also, there's another set of people, and I don't have individual names, but this is just the vibe I've been picking up over the last couple of days. So it's been going on for a while, but for instance, yesterday at the walk run, for those of you who were there was someone who had put up signs for where we were down at the War Memorial. There was someone directing you to parking. There was somebody directing you to the registration tent. There was somebody handing you the bib. There was somebody handing you a cup of coffee and the donuts. And you know what? They were all volunteers. They were all people of Markel who just said, yeah, how can we help? We want to be part of this too. So the people checking you in at the desks up there, all the people around who are just bending over backward to help you, all of that was done on a completely volunteer, extra hours basis by the people of your company. So those of you who volunteered in any way, shape, or form, would you please stand up and let us recognize you and thank you? I know a number of you. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank my partner, Mike Heaton, who helped me set the goal and create the system to make the goal a reality of making the process of the Markel Reunion be as it is. And I want to thank the ninjas who spend their time with us every day, and life would not work without them. And the ninjas are Shannon Martin, Christina Matisse, and Cynthia Fetterman, our assistants, and make everything work. Thank you, ladies. And by the way, that is a technical title, so we're proud to have so. Today, this meeting, we have people from 22 countries who've come and joined us today. So thank you so much for coming. That's a new, we haven't been keeping records, but I'm going to safely pronounce that as a new record. We have people, yeah, thank you all for coming. We have people from 45 states who are here, so we're closing in on the certainly it would be a majority. 45 states, 22 countries. We're glad you're here. Hope to make this meeting worthwhile for you. I'm going to start off before we get to the Q&A. There are 3 slides I would like to review with you for a moment. So if you could pull up the first slide. Thank you. All right, this is our very key highlight of our first quarter results. And you know, one of the things that I tried to write about in the annual report this year and make sure that people get an increasing understanding is the question of, you know, what is Markel worth? And how do you think about the value of this business and the value of a share of Markel stock? And I just want to try to share with you some brief numbers to try to give you a picture of how it is that we think about it. So if you think about any time we make any money at all, any dollar of profit that we have, there are basically two things in general that we can do with it. Well, three, but we'll get to that. So the first thing that we can do is we can invest it. And we can invest it in a public security. Sometimes it's an equity, sometimes that's a bond. But we have a publicly traded portfolio of equities, bonds, fixed income instruments. And you can see that March 31, the end of the first quarter a year ago, that was $24 billion. It's now $28 billion. So during the course of the past year, year over year, that total grew $4 billion. So one of the things and that's a 17% increase year over year. If you take that number and you subtract out all the debt that we have, you get a net investments that the company has, and you can divide that by the number of shares that we have. And as you're an owner of a common share of stock, as long as two things are true, and those two things are that we operate our insurance and ventures businesses profitably, so a combined ratio of less than 100 and net profitability, and that we don't shrink, the complete and total earnings from those investments accrue to you as the shareholders, 100 cents on the dollar. So that is the first component of value, and that's one of the ways I would think about what a share of Markel is worth. Second thing I would think about is we can invest dollars and pounds and other currencies into operating businesses. We've had an insurance business for over 100 years. We had Markel Ventures businesses that started in 2005. Those businesses tend to be best described by their income statement and the cash that they make, not so much the balance sheet. So the way that I think any thoughtful analyst would go about that task is you would look at the operating income, which is essentially the pre-tax income of what those businesses are making. So that doesn't include any investment returns whatsoever. Those are dollars of underwriting profits, dollars of operating profit from our ventures businesses, our ILS business, our insurance services business. And I would add those two up, and I would annualize them to some degree, and then I would put a multiple on it. And you can pick any reasonable multiple you want. It doesn't make any difference, really, if you're thinking about what the rate of change is over time. 8, 10, 12, something like that is a number that I would use, and I would keep that number consistent. I would not change it year by year. And we've tracked that number all the way back to the IPO of 1986. Now, it just so happens that in the first quarter of this year, the insurance engine was down a bit, the ventures engine was up a bit, so that total number, doesn't change that much. But that's just a quarter. And then if you could go to the second slide, the second slide is where these numbers start to become more meaningful. And we measure ourselves and hold ourselves accountable, not to quarter by quarter progress, although we like quarter by quarter progress, but that's not the way we steered the ship. That'd be like trying to drive a car by looking at the hood ornament rather than the road. So looking at the road we use and the length we hold ourselves accountable for is 5 years at a time. And if you look over the 5-year period of time, that pool of investments has grown from 16 change to 27 and change $1 billion, which is a compound annual growth rate of 11%. And if you look at the operating income, that's where you can kind of see it clearly over a 5-year period. The 5-year bucket has grown from 813 to $2.5 billion. The ventures, 573 million to $1.7 billion. Those are both 25% growth rates over the last 5 years. These are really good results, and that's how I would think about how to financially measure and check all of the things you've heard about the style and values and qualitative. Well, it does come down to being measured by numbers, and these are the numbers that I would look at to check and see how we are doing. And then the third slide, this here brings up the third thing we can do with money. So in addition to putting it in an investment portfolio or expanding business or buying a new Markel Ventures acquisition or insurance acquisition, the other thing we can do is we can sort of do that math and think about what each share of stock is worth on an intrinsic basis. And if we think the intrinsic value is meaningfully higher than the market price, we can buy in our own stock. We started doing that in a measurable way, probably in 20, and then in 21 and 22 and 23, you've seen the pace of repurchase activity pick up. and we've taken the total number of shares outstanding from 14 million down to less than 13 million over the last couple of years. So combine the last slide with this slide, you're looking at a business that has more investments per share, has more profitability per share, in any kind of way you mention it, and it's being divided by fewer shares. So if we keep going at the rate we went last year, in 30 years, we'll be down to 1 share, and I think that should be worth a bunch. We probably won't get there, but we will do our best to approach it if that's the rational and reasonable thing to do. All right, so at this point, this meeting is now all about you, and it's your meeting, and we're here to answer your questions. And for a meeting like this to work, we desire, we solicit your questions. Please keep it short, keep it polite, have it meet Alan's test of the old-time values and kindness, but tough and fair. We have 2 question stations on either side. We also have Tyler back in the back, because as you all registered, there was the opportunity for you to write down a question that you wanted us to address. Now, as Tyler collected that, he did not share any of those with us. I wanted to honor the idea that any question would come at us fresh. So there's no script, there's no charts, there's no presentations. These are fresh questions. We'll rotate Tyler in and out compared to audience questions, but again, we encourage you to queue over there. We have our first question, and I want to say the first question, even though I don't know what the question is, I do know who the questioner is. And he is my friend Jeff Stacey, who's joining us from Toronto, Canada. Jeff is someone who met in Omaha many 30 probably plus years ago. Been a loyal Markel shareholder, a knowledgeable investor, runs a firm up in Canada. We have a tradition of doing a brunch out in Omaha, where for a couple of years there was some guy off to my left who was the same guy, and he was waving and trying to get recognized, and apparently I don't see out as well as my left as I do on my right. So I never recognized him, and for a while I gave that gentleman the honor of asking the first questions. That gentleman is no longer with us, but Jeff has picked up the baton and has asked first questions in Omaha, and now doing so in Richmond. So with that, Jeff, you have the first questions, and when you get the microphone, if you would state your name, if you're a Markel shareholder, perhaps how long you've been a shareholder. If not, that's okay. We're hoping by the end of the day you'll fix that, and where you're from. But Jeff, to you.
I am indeed Jeff Stacey. I'm a Markel shareholder for 25 years. So Tom, I want to start by thanking you and your colleagues for this wonderful reunion of events. Over the years, I've built some very enduring friendships and business relationships from attending the various Markel events, and in my experience, it's very rare in business and very special. So congratulations and well done to you and your colleagues. My question is about the 3-engine architecture of insurance, investments, and Markel Ventures. For the 2023 year, Markel reported record comprehensive income. And, that was powered primarily last year by investments in Markel Ventures. Underwriting, insurance, while profitable, was below the company's expectations. I was somewhat baffled when you released these results that the share price dropped sharply despite reporting, record comprehensive income. So my question is just this: do you think that investors are not properly understanding the 3-engine architecture? And if they are, you agree that they are not, what can we do to close that perception gap?
Well, thank you for the question, Jeff. Last year, and Jeremy and his team have been candid about this. We've performed at less than wonderful levels in some aspects of the insurance engine, despite performing spectacularly well in many other parts of the insurance engine. But if you look at it at the level of the 3 engines, think about the idea of a football team. And on a football team, you have an offensive team, a defensive team, and special teams. And the record comprehensive income from 2023, I would draw the analogy, that was winning the game. So we won, but we won by 6 points, and special teams scored 2
touchdowns on punt returns. So you won, but it was not balanced. And you don't think of it as being replicable in the way that you would if the contribution from the offense and the defense and the special teams was a little more balanced. So I think the market had some concerns about the fact that insurance, which is our legacy business and the largest single business we're in, underperformed and worked through those issues, and they just didn't give credit for how well the special teams played. That being said, it's better to win than lose, which we did, and I think the stock market reaction, and this is very short term, to our first quarter results was to some degree a sigh of relief that, okay, the offense is playing more like it should, the defense is playing like it should, and the special teams are playing like they should. So I think the number one way in which investors will come to appreciate and understand what this business is worth is by us performing. And if we never had this meeting and never did anything but the bare minimum of filings, but performed extraordinarily well, the market would figure that out. And if we don't perform, no matter how much fun this is, and no matter how much we communicate, and no matter how much we try to break down the components, the market's not going to love that either. So the number one thing we need to do, and we're well on the way of doing so, is improving the performance. And that I feel pretty good about. Thank you. Zone 2.
Hello, this is Chris Freed from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been a shareholder since 2021. My question is, I view Markel currently as where Berkshire Hathaway was roughly 1984, 1985. And I'm wondering, what's your vision / plan to execute in order to get Markel up to the next level?
Well, Chris, welcome from the city of brotherly love. And in terms of your vision that we would continue to follow that path, I will say from your mouth to God's ear, that would be a good thing. And basically, many of the things that Berkshire did over the years to accomplish the things it did are indeed the same things we are doing now. So first off, and really what attracted me to Markel, and I proudly wear my since 1986 shareholder pin. So at that time, I was working as a stockbroker / an analyst at Davenport & Company here in Richmond, and Davenport was a small member of the syndicate that took Markel public. And I can remember in 1984, I had read the Fortune magazine article by Carol Loomis about Buffett. And I was so stupid at the time. I remember reading it and going into the boss of the department and saying, "Hey, Joe, have you ever heard of this guy, Warren Buffett?" And he says, "It's Buffett, you idiot," and he threw me out. But that instantly crystallized in my mind what if you took a specialty insurance operation that was dedicated to making an underwriting profit. And by the way, that was unusual at that point in time because interest rates were so high that if you had an insurance operation and you collected premiums and you were able to hold them for a year or 2 or 3, you could just collect the interest income on the money and make overall profitability that way. Markel, because we're doing things other people won't do and bring intellectual capital to solving somebody's problems as well as just financial capital, has always been dedicated to the idea of making an underwriting profit. And even in last year when our combined ratio was 98, that means every dollar that came in, 2 cents of it stuck to the ribs of underwriting profit. And we've always had the mindset of investing it with a long-term time horizon. So the bones were there from day one. And Steve Markel was the architect that had created and demanded that set of profitability and the willingness to invest longer term in an equity securities. So basically every day since then, we've been following that recipe and doing those things. We focused on investments all the way along. In 2005, we started Markel Ventures because we had the opportunity to buy controlling interest in a non-insurance business for the first time. So we're just running the play of the playbook that was laid out, and if we keep running it well, it's been our observation that the world keeps showing us opportunities and things keep, the phone rings with people wanting to know if we would like to take part in something or help with something or invest in something. And I have no idea what that's going to be tomorrow or a year or 2 or 5 years from now, but history has shown that if we keep doing the things we're doing, we will have more opportunities than we know what to do with. Thank you. I'm going to go to Zone 3. Tyler?
There was a lot of questions about the state of competition in the insurance business. Similar questions from Paul Saunders, Ethan Tucker, an individual shareholder since 2011 from Maryland, and this specific question from Nicholas Appello from High Sage Ventures in Boston. He asked, could you talk about the state of competition for the insurance business versus other best-in-class operators like W.R. Berkley, RLI, Kinsale, who have grown faster while generating better profitability in the last 5 to 10 years? How do you compete on talent, tech, distribution, and underwriting versus these peers?
Well, since that relates to insurance and it's a really hard question, I'm going to toss it to Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be with you. So there's a lot to probably unpack within that question as far as just the general state of competition within the specialty insurance marketplace. So when you think about a quote-unquote sort of best in breed, you're thinking about maybe as a peer comparative to Markel on the insurance side, you still have to do a little bit more work there, because the reality is that each insurance company is organized and operates a bit differently. What their product offering is, where they trade in the world, the types of businesses or platforms they have, the distribution that's considered, the path to sort of customers and even customer segmentation. So even, Tyler, some of the names that you would have mentioned there, each of those businesses is a little bit different than what we have. We are a collection of capabilities, and I think in some ways we've assembled the broadest array of capabilities for thoughtfully and strategically and efficiently matching risk and capital. When you think about having a U.S. specialty insurance company that can trade from in multiple sort of channels, multi-distribution strategy. We serve the needs of small commercial, small customers, all the way to large risk-managed accounts. We trade in the largest placement hubs in the world, the US, Bermuda, London, Singapore, Munich, many places. We have our international insurance operations. We have a reinsurance platform. We have the largest program services operation with State National. We have insurance-linked securities with Nefila. So some of the other businesses you might compare Markel to, I don't know that they necessarily have the same complement of capabilities. And one of the things I think that also creates some distinction for us that we're trying to continue to tap into, and I think it's going to be a big part of the story of where we go over time, is that collection of capabilities, our culture, and that system of values that we talk about that binds us. We're an incredibly collegial operation. We're an incredibly collaborative operation. We have the ability to partner across platforms, across channels, across the globe to sort of create the best solutions we can for our customers. I think that's distinctive. So I think many of the companies that you might compare us to would find it perhaps more difficult in that space. I think when you think about distribution, multiple channels. We trade across a wide array of distribution channels. We are proud to be a multi-distribution channel. I think that's a competitive advantage longer term. Technology, we've spoken about that to a degree, and our technology stack is divided and segmented in many different ways. What it looks like to trade in SME business in Germany from a technology standpoint is going to look different than large shared and layered risk managed accounts that we're going to trade in US and Bermuda. And so we have to have technology solutions that address the full complement of what we do. We have a technology roadmap. We have a vision in that space. We've been implementing for years what we're doing, and we really have the rest of the pieces of what we want to be true in that space. Certainly different organizations are going to be at different points in their journey with regards to technology. I think some of that's going to come back to where do you trade, how many channels, your breadth of products, how long you've existed, whether or not you've grown through acquisitions. So a lot there. The insurance space is certainly competitive. I'd also just caution in a way when you pick up a set of numbers on a 90-day increment, I don't think you can just compare two sets of figures and think they're telling you the same story. Different companies have different markets, products, market cycles, and how they approach if you will, reserving, how they approach margins of safety, how they think about, the inflationary environment we might experience. any number of things that sort of influence what they even put into the results. So just a caution to do the deeper work, I think, on one set of numbers compared to another.
Let me add 6 quick bullet points to Jeremy's answer, if I may. So first off, I learned, I started out life as a CPA, and then the second thing I did after becoming a CPA was learn to start saying, well, I used to be a CPA, which is much more convenient because you don't have to keep up with the CPE requirements and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things apparently in GAAP accounting, there's a precise definition for what it means for you to say apples to apples. I think if we're talking about things that are not publicly filed financial statements, and we talked about an apples to apples comparison, you all know what I'm talking about, but apparently you can't really say that unless you meet these specific GAAP tests to say it. So I've come to adopt the phrase applesauce to applesauce. So what I think you're looking at when you look at different insurance entities, like some that you referenced, it's an applesauce to applesauce comparison. And let me suggest what I mean by that. So first off, there's the mix of business that you have, about how much property business you write versus how much casualty business you write. And in any given year, Markel will skew more one way or the other. Historically, we've skewed a bit towards the casualty side, but we're a meaningful writer of property risk too, and that is still the case. It's been a good year in property. So some of the companies you would have mentioned would have a heavier concentration and dose of property mix. Now you can attribute that to management skill and saying, look, we want to heavy up on property, and it turned out to be a good decision to do so. And you could say, well, you guys made a mistake by not emphasizing property last year. Fair criticism, but it makes it an applesauce to applesauce comparison because we're writing different businesses. Workers' comp is another example of how much of that you had in your book and would make a big difference. The second thing is, and we've talked about it, and for readers of our annual report and close followers, we took the big, heavy-duty property exposures, and as opposed to writing them on our balance sheet, using our capital, we, through Nefila and our ILS operations, write the same risk, serve the same customers, participate in the profitability of that, but that'll show up as fee income and service income, not underwriting profitability. So if you're looking at one combined ratio of 95 and another combined ratio of 95, you may think they are the same thing, but they're not, because they have different components, and the profitability we would have would be the 95 and what we made in fee and service income, which in the other entities you mentioned would not be the case. We also have a spectacular international business, which those companies don't have, which would make the comparison, again, more applesaucey to applesaucey. We're also conservative in our accounting and setting the loss reserves. It is an item of religious mantra around here that we set our loss reserves at levels that are more likely to be redundant than deficient. And that means that as time goes by, whatever number we put up for what we thought the loss reserves were going to be, we want the actual number to come in lower and better than that. And for almost every year of our history, in fact, the last time we didn't get that right for a full year was 2004. So we mean what we say about that sort of thing. And then the last point I will make, and this is a karma style point, I am glad, we are all glad, everybody should be glad that those insurance companies you cited and other insurance companies are profitable and make money. That's a good thing. That is healthy competition. The competition that scares me and is really tough are people who are willing to lose money at insurance. That's somebody who's real tough to compete with. And that does happen from time to time. And I can remember, and for those of you who have buttons with a number of years on them from the early days of the Terra Nova acquisition and our foray internationally, and that was some tough slogging there for a while to figure out how to do that. We would look at other companies. We would understand the risks. We would see the prices they were charging compared to the prices we were charging. And we would say there's just no way that can work. But it worked for them for a while until reality asserted itself. And we used to have to comfort ourselves. And believe me, it was cold, lean comfort that didn't seem that comforting at the time, but it was true. We used to say, someday they're going to run out of money to run out of. And that's exactly what happened. And we just had to wait that out. And it is way worse to compete with somebody who is in the process of running out of the money they have to run out of than an entity and an organization that's running a good, solid, profitable business. Thank you. Zone 1.
Hello, my name is Joey Opekin. I've been a Markel shareholder since 2019. The most important value of our company, Markel, is the culture, the Markel style. Of course, it's been 4 years since COVID struck, but you guys are still using the hybrid model, and Tom, you mentioned this today in the fireside chat, the challenges of adapting to the new generation's view of what the work life is going to be like. How are you guys addressing and evolving to this new generation's view of work life while still maintaining the Markel style? Thank you.
Thank you, Joey, and I appreciate the question. I recognize this from previous years.
From Andrew to understand what's going on in the venture space.
Yeah, absolutely. I recognize you as a questioner from previous years in Richmond and in Omaha, so welcome back and thank you for that question. It's interesting. So for instance, and Andrew can pick up on this in a minute, in many of the Markel Ventures companies in particular, we have factories. We have operations that are industrial operations. And as the gentleman who ran Havco, which makes wood floors, keenly observed, you can't make wood floors at home. So the first week or two of COVID and government mandated quarantines and whatnot, we had to shut down because we, like everyone else, had no idea of what it was we were dealing with. But we pretty quickly, after pausing, tried to figure out that in an indefinite world like this, we have to figure out how to proceed. And the people of Havco and the people of Lansing and so many other industrial, tangible, physical operations, they went back to work. And they showed up in the facilities, which oftentimes run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I think the CEOs of those businesses made a wise call. I can't think of any exceptions to this. They said, if we're going to ask our people to be here, we're going to be here too. And that included the office staff. So the change that happened within Markel Ventures really not so much. They operated similarly before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. In a more white-collar workforce, a more technologically empowered workforce where you have a laptop and you can get a lot of work done remotely. Well, we did that because, again, that was the call that could make the business run and operate and make it all happen. At the same time, as quickly as we could, we tried to open offices safely and provide a welcoming environment where people would be attracted to be with their friends and their colleagues and their coworkers. And different people have different situations, different medical realities, different childcare challenges. The supply chain of what it takes to be a working parent got disrupted, among other things. So we try to be thoughtful. We try to be reasonable. We try to be rational. We try to operate in goodwill, and we expect our teammates to operate in a similar fashion. And basically, for most days of the week, I think it'd be relatively indistinguishable about the people we would have inside or outside the office. We've always been a culture of people who are traveling to our client's office and being out there in the field. So operations, whatever normal is, we've been living in it for a couple of years, and we're there now. I don't know if you want to add anything, Andrew?
Yeah, so at the end of last year, the Markel Ventures family, 19 businesses employed 16,200 people. Rough estimate, 70–80% of those people are as Tom described. Their job doesn't exist in an environment that's not in person. Our friends at Costa Farms have 5,000–6,000 people at peak season demand. They're out working in the field with a handful of folks supporting them in the office, whether it's Cottrell or Havco, Markel Food Group, some of our large manufacturers, Ellicott Dredge. There's just no choice. And so in some ways, their change curve was how to live in that environment and how to continue to thrive. What you heard on the radio around back to office and hybrid, it just wasn't relevant. Now, we do have businesses that it is relevant for. You take CapTech. Many of you saw a CapTech team speak this morning on AI. Look, CapTech's clients didn't want them in their office. and CapTech can do their work from anywhere. So CapTech chose a different model, and that worked for CapTech. Now, I think they still believe relationships matter. Arguably the most important point in all of this is our companies made those decisions. That's where the decision needs to live. This team up here has a certain way of working. We prefer in office. We spent a lot of time together during COVID. It was tough at first, but then we found ways to make it joyous. But we didn't tell our companies what the right decision was. We encouraged them to think both in terms of what matters right now and what matters forever. And I'm super proud of what they've done. It's an exceptional group of leaders, and they chose to do what was right for their business. And I think they haven't missed a beat.
Thank you. Zone 2. Thank you. Yep.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Gongson from Washington, D.C. I've been a shareholder since 2008. First off, I would like to thank you for holding the Nefila module this morning to go over more about ILS. As you may remember, I was the one who asked about ILS and more about ILS in last year's shareholder meeting. On a separate topic, my question is about the 2024 proposal that passed regarding executive and employee compensation regarding shares. My understanding about the past was that employees and executives could purchase shares at a 10% discount, and it was implied that the discount was absorbed by Markel and that there would be options for a 3% loan to pay off the balance. Can you please help me understand how the 2024 proposal is different or similar to what existed prior?
Certainly. And I'm going to ask Mike to lean in on this.
It's nice of you. And I was through my eyeballs asking Sue, sitting on the second row there. When it comes to the employee stock purchase program, I don't think we have made a change from 23 to 24, so I'm not entirely certain what you're referencing. I apologize. I think that 10% discount you referenced is still in place, and that exists. We believe in an ownership mentality, a long-term ownership mentality, and that's not something new to the company. That's something that Steve and Tony and Alan instituted many, many years ago just to encourage our employees to sit alongside you as shareholders.
Mike, I have judges in my ear, and Brian Costanzo and Sue nodding, confirming that there have not been changes below the executive level. Now, some of the changes that happened at the executive level were driven by Sarbanes-Oxley and regulations and things that named executive officers have different rules that apply to us, the rank and file. But the spirit for everybody is we want people to be owners of this business. We want people to be members of the family, and we try to meet people halfway and encourage long-term ownership positions for people who are working here as part of their daily deal. Anything to add? Okay, thank you. Tyler, zone 3.
This next question comes from Brian McCauley, a longtime shareholder from Broad Run. I saw him here in his 20-year or 20-plus button. And this is about Markel Ventures. On the eve or approaching the 20th anniversary of Markel Ventures, Brian asked, any lessons learned in Markel Ventures and how that informs future acquisitions? And then more specifically, he asked, what kind of return on investment, IRR, return on equity on Markel Ventures inception to date, and expectations you have about future such returns could you provide?
I'll start off with a few comments and then invite Andrew or Mike to chime in, since we've all been partners in this almost from day one. In terms of lessons learned, it's hard. Anybody can say this, but it's harder to do than it is to say. And one thing I would distill, and this is something that I would not have known 20 years ago, is that if you look at a business and you see somebody running a business and think, boy, that's great, well, you should disaggregate that and break it down a little bit. Because I've come to appreciate there are 3 distinct, different skills on display. One is the skill of running a business. And if you're running a business, you're a business person, and you're meeting your payroll and you're taking care of your customers, hats off to you. That's hard. And I admire the people who can do that at any scale of which it's done. But that's the skill of running the business. The second skill is scaling a business. So if you have a business that has one location and you have 4 employees and you're doing well, great. But if you're going to move from 1 location to 10 locations to 100 locations, that is a different skill than running a business. And then the third skill is once you're at the 100 locations and beyond, there's running a business at scale. And that, yet again, is another discipline. So I would say some of the things that we did early on, I did not appreciate that differential. So I learned it as I learned most things, i.e. the hard way. And those have informed subsequent decisions that we've made. As to the rates of return, for instance, and I should have brought this up in an earlier question, on that slide 2, where I talked about the way I think about the intrinsic value of the business, the 5-year number where the data starts to become real and robust, the compound annual growth rate per share on the investment portfolio that gets marked every day at 4 o'clock, that's 11% a year. The operating income buckets over those 5 years were at 25% a year. And if you weighted average combine those over the last 5 years, that intrinsic value calculation, of which Markel Ventures would be a big doggone part of it, is roughly 15% a year for the last 5 years. That is a wonderful rate of return, and I'd be happy to sign up for that sort of return forever. That will put us in the pantheon of superstars if we can continue to compound at the kind of rates we have so far. Andrew or Mike, anything you want to add on that?
I'll add a couple things on the lesson learned. I'd say I'd encourage you to find Ken Newsom here afterwards, because I think every mistake we've made in 20 years we've made with Ken. He started with us. I wasn't even here yet, but I heard of some of the early mistakes, and I've made some during my 12 years. But look, we're learning, we're adapting. We don't have it all right. I think about my partner, Peter Partee, who's on the team now. And when we step into a process, whether one of our businesses is looking to buy a company or we might be involved in some discussions ourselves, working with Peter, we're better than we've ever been before. And we don't have to tell Peter all the lessons learned. He's got his own over a multi-decade career in which he's done investing at other places outside of Markel. So the list is long. It should be, and we'll continue to add to it. I think there's some things we've learned around businesses that work well in our system and businesses that don't. And we try to stay disciplined around that. There's questions as to why we may not have bought a business in the past few years. Lots of reasons, but we want to find businesses that work well in our environment and where we are the best home for those businesses. So the lessons learned line up in that way. And on the returns front, look, I think they've been good. I think they've been really good, and that's a credit to the 19 leaders that run our companies. Sure, we're the ones who ultimately make the decision to invite them into the family, but they're the ones who do the work every day. It's incredible what our group's done. Super proud of all of them. I'd love to name all of them right now, but most of them are in the arena. I hope you find them at the reception. But they've done a great job, and they've provided very good returns to you all as shareholders.
Mike?
I'll add, agreeing with all that, and maybe add one more, and I'll take advantage of your question if you don't mind to add my own thanks onto that, which was expressed so well by Tom and so beautifully, and Steve's remarks as well for Alan. And I have a personal reason to do that, and I'll I had the opportunity 3 years ago to tell Alan, thank you for personally bringing me into this company 18 years ago. And all that was said about him has been true. What have we learned about Ventures? When Alan invited me to walk in the front doors of the building at 4521 Highwoods Parkway, where I still sit today, I fell in love with this company. It didn't take me a full day. I don't think it took any of us a full day. Why? We have 214 words in the Markel Style. We talk about the style. I think in some ways that overcomplicates it. It was a place that loved to win and just wanted to be decent while they did it. It's not harder than that. Just be kind, but have fun winning. And I loved that. Unbeknownst to me, on the day I walked in that front door, Tom had launched this experiment in the background. And the experiment was this. Can we go find other businesses who share that same set of values and invite them to join the party or invite us to join their party, however you want to think about it, and can we become stronger together if we do that? And it was complicated because some of those businesses had entirely different things than what our core business was. And in effect, that was the experiment that was Markel Ventures. What have we learned in almost the 20 years of doing that? It works. It works. It doesn't work perfectly. It isn't always easy, but it's magnificent. And the power of that idea, I feel like I'm giving an infomercial when I talk about it. It's very profitable. It's defensible. It's unique. And it's extremely needed in the world. This idea of having a long-term home for businesses that want to win and win the right way. It is an incredible thing. There is no fault in that idea. If we mess this up, to the question about where does the company go in the next 10 to 20 years, if we mess this up, it's not the idea. It's the people. Tom talked about the performance of the engines. The beauty of, and insurance is so large and still a cornerstone of the business in every single way, that if it has a bad year or two, it's going to be very evident. It's not the only business that struggled in 2023 for sure, but the beauty of having multiple businesses together, committed to winning together, cheering each other on when things are great, cheering each other on when things aren't tough, it is a magical thing. It's a dream you had 18 years ago, and what have we learned? It's working.
Thank you. And one additional adjective I would add to your list, it's replicable. This is a business that is now at scale, and it can continue to scale because it's values driven, and those are universally applicable. Point number one. Point number two, in referencing Alan, and I'll ask for your grace and reminding of the sense of humor bit, is Alan, in his encouraging way, when something went wrong, he would say, you know, it's okay to make a mistake. Now, please don't keep making the same dumbass mistake. But that has grace for making the mistake, but it also means don't quit. Don't quit. Keep going.
He said that to us a lot.
We're going to go make some new mistakes. Zone one.
Hi, my name is Amir Golgari. I am been a shareholder for a while. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and was hoping, in the spirit of inverted thinking, if you could give us an example of an investment you could have made or a business you could have bought that you knew enough to do and it made financial sense, but you didn't do it for reasons, for culture or executive, something that wasn't financial. Thanks.
Well, one story comes to mind, and I can't name the company, but I'll tell you as much of the story as I possibly can. And that was, Markel Ventures back in 2013. So we'd been at it 8 years, and we were going down the path. Andrew already knows where this is going. There was a deal that came up, and I completely fell head over heels in love with it. And it was a great business. It was a fun business, and I still see their product and services many times today. And no matter where I am and when I see it, I take a picture of it and usually message it to Andrew and Mike and just show a picture of a tear in my eye. Now, the reason we didn't do it is because that was the same moment almost that we did the Altera deal. So we were faced with, look, you can do one or the other, but we can't do both. And Steve was the hanging judge at that particular time, making that particular call. So I whined for a while and cried and stomped my feet, but I realized that he made the right call. So today, for example, if it comes up, I mean, there's a certain amount of bandwidth and capacity that we have to buy anything, and that's both financial and just human. Time, hours, team, the ability to spend the appropriate amount of time on something. So that was a case where there was an insurance company deal and a ventures deal that were coming in at home plate at the exact same time. Steve made the correct call to say we're going to do the insurance one, and we can't do both. Now the good news about buying an insurance entity, and this was an insurance underwriting entity, not an insurance services entity, is that when we spend our money to buy it, well, the insurance underwriting entity has an investment portfolio there, which then subsequently gets there. So it's a two-step process, but we still have the money after we do an insurance underwriting deal. And so they're going to win every tie for that reason. Because then, with just a small time delay, we'll be able to do the non-insurance deal. Now, in the time that existed between us closing the Altera deal and having everything all set to do the other deal, some other lucky bastard bought that business. Well, so it goes, but we're all right. Andrew wants to chime in here.
So Captech spoke this morning, and when they were speaking, they were talking about news articles from 8 a.m., so breaking news as they were on the panel. Breaking news, there's a tourist that bought that business, right? They're not going to own it forever.
Don't say too much. Don't say too much.
I'm not. I'm just simply saying that that business will be for sale again.
Okay, yeah.
That business will be for sale again.
Perfect. There you go. Life is long, and we're patient and wait, and Andrew is correct. There are things, and speaking of that particular patience, so for instance, Captech that you referred to, and VSC, the first conversation that we had with those companies until the time of closing was 6-7 years, respectively. So we are patient. We build relationships with people, and sometimes the timing doesn't work, but if the relationship is there, the time is your friend, and it will work, and it will show up. So I'm happy to hear that breaking news, and I volunteer to go back in the trenches to work on that deal. Absolutely. All right, where are we? Zone 2. Thank you.
Hi, Tom. Brian Gehring from Richmond, Virginia, Markel shareholder and employee of Markel Ventures. You have said many times over the last few years, including today, that we are building one of the world's greatest companies. And my question is, how do we know when we get there? And what are some other companies that you would consider great?
Well, thank you, Brian, and I appreciate your commitment to Parkland and Markel. I can remember the instant when you and I first met, and you agreed to join us, and thank you for doing so. In terms of when we will get there, the precise answer to that is never. That's not a journey that finishes, but we're playing an infinite game, and the actual playing of the game itself every day, that's what's fun. And that is what's great. And we've talked about it in the annual report, that the idea of win-win-win, which we talk about all the time. I met a jaded New Yorker who talked about, he was sort of pushing back on that idea of win-win-win. He says, that means I win 3 times and you lose. So a slightly different definition of win-win-win. But what we mean when we say win-win-win is we want customers who deal with us to win, to feel better off because of the product or service that they bought for us that took care of some need or want that they had, and we did it well enough and at a fair enough price that we earned a fair financial return, and they were happy with what they got and want to do business with us again and refer people to us. And I can think of no better organization within Markel than the one you work for that lives by that ethos and the turning inside out that you and your colleagues do every day to help people that the world isn't really helping very much. I could not be more proud of what you do, and that stands as a testament for how that works. We want you as a colleague to win, and we want you to have the ability to, as Alan said in the style, reach your highest potential. Be creative, learn, laugh, have fun, enjoy the people that you work with. And I know you well enough to know that works well. And in the context of doing all that, we want the shareholders, the capital providers, to win as well, which means we earned good returns on the capital you gave us to do these things. And I think our 5-year numbers and our 35-year numbers would support the fact that we're doing that as well. There are other companies that we admire as well. And for instance, as an example, one of them didn't used to be part of Markel, but then it did become part of Markel Group. And I think of Lansing and the culture and the way in which Lansing operates. That has been a valuable addition to the DNA of the Markel Group. And we've learned so much by being associated with Lansing. And things like the employee survey and the employee pulse kind of things that we do. I mean, obviously we were doing some of those, but when we saw how Lansing did it, we took our game up a notch because we thought the Lansing team and Lansing did it better. So there are examples of people who do it extraordinarily well in so many ways, winning companies, and we're always on the lookout for them. Thank you. Zone 3.
Yes, the next question comes from Denny Jaspers, who's here all the way from the Netherlands. He asked, imagine you Tom, the CEO of Markel, awaken after being frozen for 40 years, stepping back into the world and the company you once led, what question would be at the top of your mind for your team?
I think, where's the coffee? I come up with first. Well, the way I would actually answer that, and I can remember this. So here's one of my goals, and this is a silly goal, but it's a goal nonetheless. I was out in Omaha for the 34th year in a row a month or so ago at the Berkshire meeting, and I was reflecting to myself, and I've spent a fair amount of time in Omaha and Nebraska, different things, and it's a wonderful place, and there's just this great ethos and culture that exists out there. And I'm thinking, if I was 40, 50, 60 years old, and I was in Omaha, and I was in business, and I was a successful business person, and I had lived in Omaha and Nebraska all my life, I would be embarrassed not to own some Berkshire stock. I mean, how can you miss it? It's right under your nose. So I think about Richmond, and I think sort of what we're doing. And I will tell you, so the first stock I bought was at about $8 a share. And by the time I got to 30, and this is a small town, and you go to cocktail parties and you see people. I can remember people at cocktail parties saying, oh, that's great, but I missed it. I missed it when the stock was $30 a share. And as best I could, I would try to respond politely. I would say, all of the same people who were working at Markel from 8 to 30 are still working there every day. We might not be done. It could go further. Now, as it's gone from 30 to 1,600 or whatever, what I would say, perhaps not all of the same people, because time does take a few of us out over time, but all of the same values are going to work every day. So it's not over. So if I was in a time machine and woke up 40 years later, what I would do is look for the Markel Style sites. And I would start to try to find signs that even though the people who were in those buildings and offices and factories and plants and farms probably are different people, I would try to sniff and discern and ask questions to see whether the same values were there. And if the same values were there, I would say, great, tell me what I've missed, and let's go. And if the same values weren't there, I go, not so good. So, hope that answers this question. Thanks for coming from the Netherlands. Zone 1.
Hi, Mackenzie McCarthy. I'm shareholder for 6 years. What are our plans, both short-term and long-term, to utilize the power of AI to evolve and propel ourselves forward in this industry?
Thank you. I'll speak very briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Jeremy, because oftentimes that question tends to be oriented towards the insurance business, but I would say it applies through every ventures company as well. And again, CapTech did a presentation this morning who are aggressively trying to help others, as well as themselves, utilize the tools of AI. In its broadest brush sense, AI is a tool, and it is a tool in a long list of tools that have happened ever since the Bronze Age. We, as human beings, are creative. We come up with new things. We come up with new tools, and what those tools do is they make things better, they make them faster, and they make them cheaper. So this is just the latest iteration of that, and we have our friends and colleagues and teammates at CapTech to help guide us specifically. We have IT professionals within each of the businesses that are represented here, and we are fully embrace the idea that these are things that we need to become masters at and use going forward.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, within the context of our insurance operations, I mean, a couple things I would share with regards to AI and generative AI, even more specifically. So, I don't know all the ways that AI is going to shape sort of the lives that we exist in and the way that we work in the coming years, but I am incredibly highly confident that it is going to shape the future of the way that we work. And it is different from, I think, some of the more recent fads around technology, so blockchain or RPA or things along those lines. We look at AI within insurance and we break it into a couple different sort of buckets. One, we want to think about sort of in a way, the governance or risk management, the ethics and responsibilities of using and leveraging those tools. We think about how AI could impact even our traditional products, our traditional perils. Second sort of bucket we really think about is how we can take advantage of third-party software providers and partners that operate in scale, have made significant investments, and where can we immediately benefit from taking advantage of the advancements in those organizations that are readily available already within our technology ecosystem and infrastructure. So as a great example and a little bit of a plug for CapTech, and there was a panel earlier, there were some references to the fact that we at Markel are also customers and clients of CapTech, and that's a great example of a partnership that exists, that we've been looking at how we can at scale roll out some solutions that is in our employees' hands, even in my own hands, that I'm using driving productivity and efficiency. Incredible lift there. There's ways that's going to affect software engineering and desktop engineering. There's ways that's going to affect just our everyday working patterns to make jobs and productivity easier. We then get into the exciting things about productivity overall. And as a next step from there, we start to think about proof of concepts and sandbox experiments and things that we're doing right now in the space of underwriting, claims, and reinsurance, where we're redefining workflow. And in many ways, we're driving productivity and efficiency, enhancing insights, and seeing real-world live examples of how we can improve sort of our operations. So I think there's a tremendous upside. We're quite sort of bullish across our insurance operations of what we'll do in that space, and we'll probably report more over time.
Thank you. Zone 2.
My name is Jonathan Strickland with Fort Washington Investment Advisors. I'm a shareholder personally and professionally since 2021. I'm very grateful to the company for holding the event. As I look through the arcane subject of your statutory filings over a number of years, it would appear to me that perhaps the relative loss picks within your casualty lines of businesses declined fairly steadily over a multi-year period, say from 2016 to 2022. And given the attention and focus from the investment community on reserves, particularly within the last 12 months, I was hoping that maybe you might address the thought and decision process behind that, and then maybe more importantly, why reserves in that significant line of business for you are more likely to be redundant than deficient today.
Well, you've asked some technical questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian and Jeremy to give you the technical answer, but I am going to jump in on the last one, because why are reserves more likely to be redundant than deficient at Markel? Because that is our core belief and the operating philosophy and value by which we run the company. And we rely on the subject matter experts to help us get the accounting for that right. But that answer is set, and that philosophy is set first to make sure that's the case. With that.
Yeah, so I'll start out, back to what Tom said. We start our whole reserving philosophy, setting reserves that are going to be redundant. We look at that in a multi kind of layering way in which we do that. We set up a layer of management margin coming out of each year. When we set up a new year, that margin rolls off over time. So what you're seeing in some of those years with takedowns happening early on would have been the management layer of margin rolling off, and that's a natural process that we do every year. What's happened subsequent to that is you roll forward to the periods, after 21, 22, 23, looking back in those older years, 16, 17, 18, 19. The industry as a whole actual claims have developed more than what was expected. And so we started seeing that in our claims trends the last few years, and we took action here, in 22 and then again in 23, kind of reacting to those claims trends that you would have been hearing about in the broader industry across those casualty lines, professional liability lines.
Yeah, I would just add a couple things there. So more likely redundant than deficient, a very important point. Obviously, Tom has touched upon that a couple times. That is in the aggregate. That is across all of our lines and all of our products. The reality is that sometimes in a given line or product line, we may find a deficiency. We never aspire to do that, and we certainly didn't set out to do that, and that ultimately means something has changed or we got something wrong beforehand. And in the case of the casualty reserves, well, a couple things. So first off, even in 2023, a difficult year, we still had favorable prior year redundancies. And Tom alluded to this earlier. The last time we had adverse development was all the way back in 2004. And that was shortly after the Terra Nova acquisition. We were a much smaller company, and just a couple pockets of adverse development sort of swung into a total sort of situation there. We haven't seen that since that time, and especially at the sort of the scale and the volume that we have as an organization today. So we think about that. Now, within casualty, that's still in professional lines. Those are still large portions of our portfolio. And I've certainly commented in the last couple of quarters and over the course of last year about some of the things we were facing. Some of that, back to is it something that we didn't get right up front, or is it something that we sort of changed on us? The reality is both things occurred. So we have seen the impacts in our portfolio of the rising levels of inflation. We've seen the impacts of the rising levels of social inflation, right? We've seen sort of even post-COVID, courts being closed, and now going into settlement, more aggressive tactics by the plaintiff's bar. The impact of litigation financing, the elevated levels of cost of handling and adjusting claims. There were just at levels that we couldn't have reasonably anticipated. Not unique to Markel, but Markel has a greater propensity of casualty and professional lines within our overall portfolio. There's also things about how the mix of our portfolio and maybe the way that we were thinking about limits or attachment points or just good old-fashioned underwriting that we would look at and have looked at and said, we didn't do that as well as we would like to. And so we learn. But across the portfolio in total, it was still more likely redundant than deficient, and we were still favorable last year.
Maybe I'll make one last point, and that is to the point of Schedule P as the source of that. That's only going to represent our U.S. product lines that we write on U.S. paper, admitted paper, E&S paper. So that's not going to represent the lines that we write in Bermuda, and it's not going to represent the lines that we write internationally, either on our German paper or on our UK paper. I think you would see if you looked at us on an aggregate basis, we've actually seen some favorable development in those product lines, particularly in the professional side, but that's been more in our international lines, which has got different trends, different kind of impacts of things like social inflation, not as prevalent in those lines as it has been in some of our U.S. businesses.
I'm sorry, I'll make one last point, and then we'll move on.
Once you get started talking about actuarial stuff and loss, it's really hard to stop.
I do want to make one more point. Just so there's no doubt in the audience, if you haven't been following closely, we took a really in-depth review and look at this in the fourth quarter last year, and we hit that. We looked at over $4 billion of reserves. We really got our best and brightest across the company. We complemented that with third-party insights and data. We did a really ground-up review. So we have tried to take that, and that would have been reflected in the stat filings as well.
Thank you. Jeremy spoke of the technical matters, as did Brian. I would say in layman's term, we gave it the Larry David eye. Zone 3.
I'm going to take the liberty to pair two questions together here. The first from Chao Zhang from Think Well Wealth Advisors, a shareholder since 2023 from Allen, Texas, and one from Patrick Silp. The first one, to help us better understand what Markel Ventures looks for, can you discuss one or two past acquisitions, talking about what makes it a good business and what allows it to win against competitors in its industry? And then the second question is, please share the long-term strategy for Markel Ventures. Does the Markel Group envision it becoming a dominant engine?
Thank you. I'll take the first stab. I'll invite Andrew to chime in if he would like to at all. The first is, we've, for many, many years, and it's been written about in the annual report, we have a four-step process when we're considering making an investment in an equity security, and that means an ownership stake. So equity security, sometimes people's minds jump immediately to publicly traded equities, but buying a business in itself is buying an equity security. And what we look for are good businesses with good returns on capital that don't use too much debt to do it. That's step one. Number two, management teams with equal measures of talent and integrity, because one without the other is worthless. Three, that have the ability to reinvest the money they make or capital discipline to push it back out through either further acquisitions or dividends or share repurchases. And four, at a fair price. That catechism has been written in the annual report for at least 20 years, if not longer. And while it started out as a description of what we look for in the purchase of public equities, it is exactly the same discipline that we look for in the purchase of Markel Ventures companies as well. And that discipline has not changed in decades, and I do not expect it to change going forward. So that is the first part of the answer to the question. In terms of the size of Markel Ventures relative to the Markel Group at large, there is no strategic vision or goal or proportion or ratio that we have in mind. We look at every day as a fresh set of thinking about the 360 degrees of freedom of action we have to allocate capital, which is a unique advantage within our architecture of the Markel Group. And if we see a bunch of ventures deals that make sense, we're going to do them. Apparently, as Andrew says, I'm going to be working on a new one starting tomorrow. If it's on the insurance side, we do that, or we buy back our stock, and we really are, indifference, not the right word, because that doesn't carry the sense of, we're ecumenical when it comes to where that is going to be. And our strategy is, my two colleagues here have MBAs, I don't. And in MBA terms, when I try to connect with them, I describe our strategy as buying assets that produce cash, and we use that cash to buy more assets that will produce more cash. That's the strategy. You can add any MBA color to that if you like. Apparently, they're going to pass.
I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice if I speak, but I will. Pick a business. We've said CapTech a lot today, but I think those that were here this morning got a little taste of the quality of that company. And I remember in 2015, after many years talking about CapTech, what makes it a good business? Well, we need it, right? How many people were on the edge of their seat listening to the AI discussion, just trying to get a little sense of what they can be doing in their personal and professional lives with AI? CapTech are the folks that teach you how to do that. That makes that a good business. What allows it to win? People like CapTech. The people that work there love it. When you go talk to CapTechers, you ask them, what have they done in their careers? They say, I've worked here, I've worked there, I've worked there. I've usually moved the best opportunity, and then I found CapTech, and I stayed there. And so the ability to recruit and retain exceptional people has made that company very special over its near 3-decade history, and they've done phenomenally well in our family. And to the strategy point, I can't add much. I don't know what's next. There's a question about mistakes. We'll make more of those, but hopefully do more good things than bad, and it'll add up to a great number and a great result long term.
Thank you. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I appreciate the questions. We'll do one from Group 1 and one from Tyler, and then we'll go outside and continue the after party of the Schedule P discussion. So with that, Zone 1.
My name is Denny Poulin. I'm an investor from Pittsburgh. Thank you for hosting us, and also wanted to say thanks for hosting the Nefila ILS panel this year. Related to that, I had a question on the fee structure for the institutional investors that participate in that business. Just if you could just speak to it in a general sense, and then also just the whole idea of having a permanent capital base with insurance. Are there redemption features or like gating requirements for the institutional investors that participate in that business?
Certainly, I'll ask Jeremy to chime in on the details of this, but Denny, thanks for coming back. I remember meeting you last year, so thanks for making the trip from Pittsburgh again. Jeremy will speak to the fee structure of Nefila in just a minute. We might be mixing up a little bit of things in terms of the concepts of permanent capital and what's happening at the Nefila level.
within the Markel balance sheet, and this is the Markel Group, not just the insurance company, we think of the capital as permanent. And again, get back to that notion that I talked about of that investment portfolio, and as long as we remain profitable and don't shrink, well, all that capital earns returns for the benefit of the shareholders, and whether you want to call it permanent, unbounded, indefinite, whatever, eternal, all of those things are true. But that really describes the capital base of the Markel Group writ large. Nefila has customers who sign up for a voyage, annual years, something along that line, and they are essentially money managers, skilled managers, who charge fees to manage those assets in the way a money management firm would. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeremy to pick up any details on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't add a whole lot to that. There are different, ultimately in Nefila, we have different vehicles that have different strategies and offer different return profiles, and we work with different types of institutions. So even at the panel earlier today, if you were there, Frank Majors would have been talking about early days, pension funds, endowment funds, one type of structure with one type of vehicle. Some of the things that we're doing now, hedge funds, PE funds, those types of investments in some of those vehicles look a little bit different from a fee structure standpoint. So it all sort of depends on the services that we're providing and sort of the return profile and the needs and the returns that the investors are looking for. We gave some examples earlier, and maybe one point of clarification. Markel at large doesn't invest specifically in Nefila. Obviously, Nefila is a business that we own within the wider Markel Group context. On the sort of redemption point, again, it's contractual, and different investors in different classes with different fund strategies are going to have different terms and conditions around when and how they can redeem and signal redemption. And one of the bigger things that was it impacted adversely the wider ILS space in recent years, elevated levels of catastrophe activity. We heard this idea of trapped capital. So you were an investor, there were losses, the collateral had to be set aside, it was taking time for those losses to pay out, and as an investor, you wanted an exit, you wanted a liquidity solution. And so that is an example we talked about earlier of we could partner between Markel's resources and capabilities and appetite and Nefila's capabilities today. How can we simplify, all these different sort of funds over different years around different events and this big pot of collateral that actually maybe we could do something to simplify that administratively. So that was a way to facilitate a better exit and redemption and liquidity experience for the investors that actually then was a good return for investors and a way to put money to work to then generate more fee incomes within that structure. So a lot of that is just sort of contractual. I hope that helps.
All right, and given the time, Tyler, we'll turn to you for the last question of the evening.
I'm going to send it over to this other zone. We got one more shareholder.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Jefferson Lilly from San Francisco. I've been a Markel shareholder approximately 5 years. Thank you all for your hard work. And I've been for a decade investing limited partner capital in mobile home parks. So I'm particularly interested to hear a little bit about how you all are allocating capital, perhaps for homes, CapEx, acquisitions, et cetera, into your mobile home park division. And related to that, curious to know if you guys would ever consider acquiring a portfolio of parks for stock.
Well, thank you, Jefferson, for the question. I do know of your role in the industry, and I think you're probably pretty familiar with ours as well. We have made portfolio acquisitions for cash from time to time, and they have been opportunistic, and when the market has served up opportunities to us where we thought the cap rates were very attractive and capital wasn't just flooding through the streets as it has been the last few years. We have observed that interest rates in general are higher, and that has made the hurdle rate for every possible acquisition higher, manufactured housing communities included. We have only done a limited number of acquisitions within Markel Ventures in the last year or two. There have been bolt-on acquisitions of companies that are already part of the family. Our phone is starting to ring more. We're hearing and learning about more things that might make sense. And as a fellow Markel shareholder, I would just ask you to take comfort in the fact that we go to work every day, and we are anxious to pursue opportunities when they make sense, and we'll try to make rational decisions when we see the opportunity to do so. With that, we're going to call it. We're going to head outside for the reception.